Hi, and today on Excel Sheets Made Easy, we're going to cover pivot table basics. So if you're not aware of what a pivot table is in Excel or even in Google Sheets, it's an easy way to aggregate your data and change the view very easily without you having to mess with formats and without you having to mess with formulas too much. So what I'll do is usually a pivot table works best if you have a lot of data that you're working with. But in this case, I'm just going to show you with a small sample data so that you can get an idea of how you can use it. So first, you want to select the rows and columns that you want to include in your pivot table. I'm going to select columns A through D and all the data within there. And then what you'll do is go to Insert, and then you select pivot table from range. So this is the range we selected, which is A through D, and then you can either have it insert into a new worksheet, which it'll add a new sheet to your workbook, or you can have it insert into your existing worksheet if you wanted to insert it somewhere within the same page. I'm going to do it on a new worksheet, so then I'll click OK. And so now your data is all built in there. So what this is the headings that you had on your original table. So date, buyer, type, and amount. So if you go back to the pivot data, you see date, buyer, type, and amount. So it will match your pivot table directly. So what you want to do is drag them where you want it to be. So if you want the columns to be the date and the rows would be the buyer, let's make the columns the type. And I'm going to remove this from here. Okay, so and then the field, the values you want to use, let's say, is the amount. So you want to see how much each person spent. So right now it's showing you the sum of what they spent on each category. So you can also change the value to either be account, average, max, min, product. So let's say we wanted to see how often they were spent, how many of those occurrences were here, we would do the count. So dad's bought clothing one time, he bought sports one time for a total of two. Mom bought fuel two times, I'm sorry, food two times and fuel one time. But that's not that helpful in this case. But like, let's say we wanted, I think for this data, it would be more valuable to see the sum of how much they're spending per category. And so you can also format the data to whatever you want it to be. So we'll go back here and change this to money because these are dollar amounts that they're spending on each category. We can also add in row, borders if that'll help you visualize your data a little better. Because there's a row for blank, I'm just going to right click, filter, hide selected item. So I don't need to see the blank one, so I'm just going to take it out of our table. And you can also adjust the names here. So if you wanted to change this from row labels to category, and then it has all the categories here. You can also manually adjust the width of the rows if you want to make everything consistent with how you need it. And it automatically will give you a grand total. So as a family, Dad spent 115, Johnny spent 327, Kelly spent 339, and Mom spent the most at 544. You can also sort the data if you wanted to have it in a certain order. So you could change it to show them as a percent of the grand total. So Dad spent 8%, Johnny spent 24%, Kelly spent 25%, and Mom spent 41%. It just gives you a quick way to visualize the data however you like. You can also use pivot charts to visualize the data as a chart. So let's give an example of that one. We'll go back to our same data set and we'll insert a pivot chart. So you can just click on it and then it'll show its data from column A to column D, which is what we want in a new worksheet, or we can put it in our existing worksheet, which would be, let's say we'll put it here with this other one. We'll just insert it here. Okay. And then you just go back and click OK. So for the pivot chart, it works almost the same way. So you just drag how you want it to be. So we're going to have this one showing the type and the amount. So in this case, We're seeing a nice little chart of how much they're spending on each category. We can also add the month. Um, so here we go. So like, let's see, in February, they spent on art, January, books, March. I don't think that's the best place for that one. Let's see what's a better place to put it. We'll put it here as a filter. So let's say you wanted to only see what did they buy in January. You can click on there and you see in January, they bought books, food, fuel, insurance, and sports as a whole family. You could change it to um, multiple months. So just click select multiple items. We're going to see the first quarter of the year. What did they buy? January through March. And they bought a variety of things. So that's an easy way to visualize the data either as a pivot table, which gives you the values in a table form, or you can do a pivot chart, which would give you the values in a graphical form. If you'd like to go a little bit more in depth in pivot tables, let me know and we can examine a larger data set to give you a better idea of the things you can do with the pivot table. This one is a bit simple, so it doesn't give you that much dimensions, but the more data you have and the more areas that you'd like to view it in, it can be extremely helpful. And one nice thing about pivot tables is it automatically updates. So let's say we went in here and this was a wrong entry. Mom didn't buy fuel. So right here, we'll delete this row. And then when we go back to our pivot table, you can refresh the data. And you see mom's category went down to 37% instead of 41%. So it's just a nice way to get a quick visual. As you adjust things manually, it will update here, and then you can always refresh it to see the latest data. You can also link your pivot table into another Microsoft product. So like if you wanted to insert this table into PowerPoint presentation, and then it would automatically update every time you open the presentation, it would refresh with the data from your spreadsheet. So if you have anything else you'd like to see, add it to the comments and we'll make a new video to address those. Thank you.